All right, business leaders, entrepreneurs, sales pros, and negotiators. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you were right, but somehow the other person controlled the conversation? I mean, maybe you walked into a negotiation feeling confident, but by the end, you were agreeing to things that you didn't even want. Maybe in a business meeting, someone asked you a question and suddenly you're on the defensive. You're explaining yourself, you're justifying your decisions. Or maybe you were in a sales pitch and instead of leading the conversation, you feel like the customer is actually pulling you around in circles. If you've ever felt like someone flipped the power dynamic on you, here's the truth. They weren't just talking. They were strategically asking questions. And today, I'm giving you the formula to take that power back. We're breaking down how the most powerful people in business, law, and politics, and even in social media, use questions to control the narrative, win the arguments, and shift the power dynamic. And guess what? Grant Cardone just gave us a masterclass in how to do this with his fight against Gary Brecka. Let's drive in.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast today in the driver's seat with me, Janine Driver.
Are you ready for one of the coolest podcasts on the web? Janine Driver, she's an expert on body language, persuasion, emotional intelligence, decision-making hack. This is In the Driver's Seat with Janine Driver.
Let's play a little game. Did you just get played? Let's see this strategy in action. I'm about to ask you a question, and I want you to notice what happens in your brain when I ask this question. Ready?
Did you make the best career decision last year?
Boom. Even though I didn't say you made a mistake, your brain probably started questioning itself. That's how quickly a well-placed question can take control over your mind. And that's what we're breaking down today, why this works. I know I've been on the receiving end of this before, where I think I'm the person with the power and somehow I'm justifying everything. Let me tell you about this personal story, how I saw this trick in action. Years ago, I was sitting in the audience at a live event. The speaker, a guy named Joel Bauer. Joel is a master salesman. He was pitching this exclusive training program where you could work with him and you'll become a high-paid speaker in your industry, whatever that is. Now, Joel is a man that's all about details. He was wearing a light pink shirt with a light pink tie, no patterns. Why? Because according to him, he was talking about something along the lines of pink reduces skepticism in people and people don't question pink, or pink lowers resistance. By the way, which is true, because even some jails are painted pink and they'll throw aggressive inmates in them. Lowers the heart rate. But he went on and on about how his outfit is so strategic. And then he dropped a line that almost had everyone in the room fooled. Not me. He said,
who do you think introduced this concept to Donald Trump?
Hold on. Did Joel Bauer just say he introduced this to Trump? No, he didn't say that. But the way he framed the question led most of the audience to assume that he did. That's the power of questions. It's not always about getting an answer. Sometimes it's about controlling the assumption. And that's exactly what Grant Cardone did with his 21 savage questions to Gary Brecka. Instead of Grant saying,
Gary Brecka is a fraud,
Grant went full detective mode and dropped 21 straight up brutal questions. Some of my favorites that made me cringe.
How did you go from $300,000 in debt to buying $40 million in real estate in 3 years? Did you really work with Tom Brady? Said you were going to work with him. Have you ever been accused of fraud by a business partner? Do you have your kids working as nurses without licenses? Why did your wife have to have a separate business agreement?
In the TV series called Succession, if you've ever seen it, there's this guy named Logan Roy. He takes people apart in meetings. He doesn't go into shouting accusations. No, he doesn't. No. He asks cutting, brutal questions that makes the other person justify themselves and they fall apart. Something like,
are you even competent enough to run this company? If you're so great, why did the last deal fail? Do you actually have any influence, or are you just a warm body in the room?
Ouch, 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 3 ouches. He doesn't even have to prove anything. The other person starts what? Unraveling. And that's exactly what Grant did by dropping these questions. He turned the attention away from him and his wife over to Gary, and it makes Gary have to be on the defense. You know who else pulled this brilliant power move with questions? Taylor Swift. Without even stepping into the fight. When Ticketmaster got dragged for botched pre-sales, skyrocketing prices, and canceling public sales, Taylor Swift didn't just rage tweet. Instead, she released a statement with a few very well-placed questions. Go, Taylor.
Why is it that 2.4 million people got tickets, but thousands were left without? Why did Ticketmaster say they could handle the demand if they clearly couldn't?
Oh, the effect? Instead of Swifties being mad at Taylor, they went straight for who? Ticketmaster's throat. The lesson here. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't an argument. It's asking the right question and letting the other person squirm. Here are some power questions you can steal for your next meeting or negotiation. You probably know some of these, especially if you've been in sales for a while. But here's a good one.
What's the biggest challenge keeping you up at night? If budget weren't an issue, would this be a no-brainer?
In negotiations, one of my friends, Brad Lee, says,
What do we need to do to get to yes? So 0 to 25,000, right? Well, there's a deal in there somewhere. What do we need to do to move forward to get to yes?
In leadership and hiring, maybe something like,
What do you need to be successful in this role? What's something I could do as a leader to make your job easier?
listen, pick one of these, use it today, and let me know what happened. Or share with me, DM me, what's your favorite question to ask? All right, we just unlocked one of the most powerful communication hacks in business. You now know how to use questions to flip the power dynamic in negotiations, get the upper hand in business meetings, plant doubt without making direct accusations, control a conversation like the world's top business leaders. Now, here's your challenge. Pick one of the ones we talked about today and use it. Listen, I learned about the power of asking questions years ago when I worked for ATF at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in New York City. I was the public information officer, one of two of them. I didn't like my boss. She didn't like me. She led by intimidating people.
Marjorie, in my office. Richard, in my office.
She would point and yell at them in front of everybody.
Do you know why I called you into my office?
They look like cartoon characters, their eyes bugged out of their head, and they had deep swallows. And I was 25, 26. I'm like, yeah, if she talks to me like this, it's probably not going to go so well. And I went to lunch, I'll never forget, with this friend of mine, George. And he said,
Yeah, you don't want to threaten your boss.
because I knew all these things she was doing that was out of character, let's say out of integrity,
Don't threaten her. Like, I'm going to call internal affairs and say, you're doing this with your G car or your blank.
or whatever I knew. And he goes,
No, the implied threat is more scary than the threat itself.
I go, look, what do you mean? He goes,
I wonder what internal affairs would have to say about blank.
I go, ouch, passive aggressive. Sometimes passive aggressive might do the trick, though, by asking that question. I'll use it sometimes on my kids.
I wonder what will happen if we don't feed the fish before we leave on this trip for a week. I wonder what will happen to the fish.
And my kids run up and they're like, I'll feed the fish. I'll feed the fish. What do you think? Would you use it? Do you think it's too passive aggressive? When do you use a question to get your point across, to control the outcome? All right. You want to know how to get in the driver's seat? You just figured it out right here. If you missed my segment with regard to the Grant Cardone and Gary Brecka lawsuits and this whole debacle, just do a search over on YouTube or Spotify, In the Driver's Seat with me, Janine Driver. Put in Gary Brecka's name or Grant Cardone's name and you will see it, where I break it all down. What happened? We're analyzing body language and statement analysis in something called integrated movement with movement pattern analysis. It's awesome. When you use your right hand, something's happening inside your brain versus when you use your left when gesturing. What does it indicate when you're using both? If you're in business, then you may want to go check that episode out. Be sure to follow me if you don't already follow me, and like this page and send me your questions. How's it working? What's a topic you would like me to address in the future? I'm open to hearing from you. This show gets bigger because of you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to In the Driver's Seat with Janine Driver. Use these insights to make your life easier and relationships stronger. Remember, you matter and belong, and you're not alone on this journey. Until next time, keep driving forward. Bye now.